back to Resistance Chicks, where your hosts been... Okay, I haven't been here. You were here yesterday. No, 2 days ago. I have not been here in a really long time, and I've missed you. Anyway, we're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today's the 30th of August, 2019. I didn't even watch Leah's show. I don't know what all she covered. A lot happened.
John Durham is his findings whether Comey and his rogue team of investigators violated FBI and departmental guidelines to even start this counterintelligence investigation into a presidential campaign. Okay? They will determine if Comey had adequate justification for even launching this unprecedented investigation. Beyond that, Mr. Durham and his team likely will follow up on emerging indicators that Comey may have colluded with other intelligence community leaders to actually manufacture the justification needed. So, Mr. Durham is looking at whether he worked with other intelligence people, McCabe, Strzok. I don't even know, is this on the books? What law? Because we can see that it happened. What law did they have to get him by the book? They have to get code section 503, blah, 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 blah. They have to get them all on some sort of law that's on the books, right?
Okay, but law that's on the books would be what he did with classified information. And so I've been sitting here trying to think of a comparison of this classified information, because technically it wasn't classified. It wasn't marked classified. Just because something isn't marked classified doesn't mean that it is classified. No one should know this information like you just talked about. So let's say my brain goes to homesteading all the time. Let's say you're out on the range and your cow has a calf and you haven't tagged its ear and you haven't put your brand on it.
Right.
Is that calf yours?
Right.
Or does it only belong to you once it's been tagged and branded? Mm-hmm. Okay, no, everybody knows the calf is yours. Everybody knows this information was classified, whether it's had the classified stamp put on it or not. So yes, did he leak classified information? Yes. Did he leak classified information that had been stamped classified? No. And that's where the letter of the law will get you, but the spirit of the law, and that's the whole point of a judge. Do you understand that the judge's job is to go, you know what? There's not actually a law for this specifically, so I'm going to have to take the laws that are on the books and interpret it to see if this applies.
Right.
Any judge looking at this would say, you leaked classified information.
Right, so there were 6 words that he did leak that were supposedly labeled classified, but they didn't go after him for that. In short, James Comey is not out of the woods after the first IG report, which has exposed him as someone who casually and carelessly disregarded established rules and regulations. This is not a stretch to imagine that this disregard carried over into more serious areas of potential abuse of authority. Comey is owed apology from no one. By his own publicity-seeking behaviors since crashing onto the scene in July 2016, he has verified his animus and political biases. Without any further findings, he already has disgraced the noble office. He owes an apology to every FBI employee, past and present, who toiled to win the trust of the American people.
Every American citizen!
Yeah.
Everyone. He owes an apology to everybody.
Yeah.
You need to say you're sorry.
So, what?
And then go to jail.
I want to kind of go over this. We're still on the same topic. This from the Washington Examiner. New report details Comey planned to ambush Trump with Moscow sex allegation. The just-released Justice Department Inspector General's report provides new details on the January 2017 plan by then FBI Director James Comey, top bureau officials, and the nation's intelligence chief to spring a scandalous allegation on the then President-elect Trump, quickly record his reaction, use a prearranged secure video conference to discuss the information, and fit it all into the FBI's ongoing but unknown to Trump crossfire verification.
So, this is officially discovered as a plan that they had.
Yeah.
And then we look at the Steele dossier and go...
The allegation came from the Steele dossier, the collection of unverified tales about Trump and Russia compiled by former British spy Christopher Steele. The story was that in a Moscow hotel in a room in 2013, Trump had watched as prostitutes performed a kinky act. And
we have to go
it
over
literally,
it again.
No, but you have to understand what was in this report that they presented to a court. Okay? Trump's perverted conduct in Moscow included hiring the presidential suite of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, where he knew President and Mrs. Obama, whom he hated, had stayed on their official trips to Russia, and defiling the bed where they slept by employing a number of prostitutes to perform golden showers, urination in front of him. The hotel was known to be under FSB control with microphones and concealed cameras. So
this has to be the most childish.
James Comey signed on and said, we made sure this was verified. Most of the stuff in the report was like that, and it was unverified. So when people say it was salacious, that is minimal. The new Inspector General's report shows that Comey and other top officials placed great credibility in this allegation, which even Steele himself reportedly had grave doubts about.
Oh my gosh.
On Friday, January 6, 2017, Comey, along with CIA head John Brennan, National Intelligence Chief James Clapper, and then NSA Director Mike Rodgers met with Trump in Trump Tower in New York. Together, they briefed the president-elect on the findings of the intelligence community investigation into Russian efforts to interfere with the 2016 election. But the group, and especially Comey, had bigger plans than that. Before the meeting, they agreed that after briefing Trump on Russia efforts, the others would leave, and Comey would stay to brief Trump alone about the Steele Moscow sex allegation. Comey and top FBI officials prepared meticulously for the moment. The IG report says Comey had a planning meeting with the FBI Director Andrew McCabe, Chief of Staff James Rybicki, and General Counsel James Baker, and the supervisors of the FBI's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. The IG report says the group agreed that the briefing needed to be one-on-one so that Comey could present the salacious information in the most discreet and least embarrassing way. But however, it was presented. The FBI leaders worried that Trump might perceive the one-on-one briefing as an effort to hold information over him like a Hoover-esque type of plot. That was a reference to the FBI's notorious founding director, J. Edgar Hoover, who relished keeping and embarrassing secrets on top political leaders, which is in the book that you're talking about.
Right.
The group discussed how Trump might react. In particular, they considered whether he would make statements about or provide information of value to the pending Russia interference investigation, known as Crossfire Hurricane. Perhaps Trump would say something incriminating. The FBI officials this was entrapment of Trump. They're literally trying to entrap the president, just like they did General Flynn.
Right.
Is entrapment. So can they get on entrapment? The FBI officials made plans for Comey immediately after leaving the meeting to write down everything he would remember about it, whatever Trump said. Comey also wanted to discuss Trump's reactions with top aides immediately. Comey told the Inspector General it was important for FBI executive managers to be able to share in Comey's recall of the salient details of those conversations. Okay? Bureau officials also wanted to be able to respond if Trump publicly misrepresented what happened in the encounter. Like, you're saying I'm your FBI director. President Trump, you can trust me. But you wanted to be able to counter whether something came out of that negatively, like Trump said something negative about you. Why? So preparations were made. Comey said he had a secure FBI laptop waiting for him in his FBI vehicle, and that when he got into the vehicle, he was handed the laptop and began typing as the vehicle moved. He worked on his account as the FBI car took him to the New York field office, where aides had set up a secure video teleconference with Rybicki, McCabe, Baker, and the Crossfire Hurricane supervisors. Comey continued to work on his memo after that and sent the group a final version the next day. So I'm just wondering, when's the movie coming out?
My personal property.
When's
on
the
the
movie
FBI laptop? It's my personal property.
When's the movie coming out? Because this is movie-esque.
Is
it not?
It is.
He comes out, he's handed an official laptop, he's in an official car, he's going to a meeting where he's going to talk to these people about this backhanded thing, this investigation, this thing that they're doing to try to get Trump out of office. This is the insurance policy. They're trying to get Trump out from 2017. And everybody out there, and we'll say this again and again on our show, everybody out there who's upset that maybe the wall isn't built or Trump is maybe doing things you don't like, well, guess what? For 2 years, this man has had to fend off. And yeah, he's going to be mean and crude and crass because they are framing him for a coup and treason, and they want to take him out. They don't even want him dead. They just want him to be out of the presidency, okay? They want him shamed. Publicly shamed. And if he died, that wouldn't be enough for them because they want him shamed.
I kind of feel like if they wanted this to be taken seriously, they should have gotten rid of the PP part. Like, like, okay, let's say he had some hookers or something more believable than the fact that he hates the Obamas so much that he wanted to desecrate the bed that they had slept on with urine.
Why in the world
with
would
a
that
golden
even
shower?
But here's the thing: why in the world would that mean that he is? Why would that be proof that he's?
I
Russia?
was thinking that same thing. I'm like, okay, so he's a sycophant.
Yeah. So what? Like, if that was really real, like the most horrible thing.
They could. That's what I'm saying. The insanity of them is that they thought like this would be passed off as believable.
But the insanity is, what does this have to do with?
Where's the criminality?
Where's the Russia?
So okay,
interference
he's
in the
kind
election?
of weird. He enjoys strange
But how
things.
does Russia have anything to do with this? Like, what? Why would that
Well,
even
supposedly
be
he was in Russia.
Yeah, supposedly he was in Russia, but they were staying in the same hotel the Obama stayed in. So weird.
But here's another thing, though. Trump never has shown that kind of weird malice toward the Obamas.
But here's the thing. In his book, Higher Loyalty, Truth, Lives, and Leadership, Comey wrote that, and it literally is called the Higher Loyalty because he has no loyalty to America. His higher loyalty is to himself. Yeah. He literally told the president, "We are not investigating you, sir." At the moment Comey said those words, he had the Crossfire Hurricane team ready for a secure video conference on Trump's response to the Steele dossier. And you say, why is Trump, so harsh? Why does he tweet out crazy things? You know why? Because if you don't go on the offense,
they will take you down.
They will take you down. 3 days later, on Tuesday, January 10th, CNN viewers saw anchor Jake Tapper report this. We have a CNN exclusive for you now. CNN has learned that the nation's top intelligence officials provided information to President-elect Donald Trump and the President Barack Obama last week about claims of Russian efforts to compromise the President-elect. The report went on, and I think that was the blackmail. It was supposed to be blackmail. That was Russia's blackmail they had on Trump. That's what the Russian interference was.
Gotcha.
The report went on to say that the compromising personal information about Trump came from a British intelligence operative whose past work the U.S. intelligence officials considered to be credible. Of course, in this case, Steele's work was not at all credible, but the fact that the nation's intelligence chiefs considered it so important that Comey would brief the president-elect made it newsworthy. And not long after the CNN report on the briefing, BuzzFeed published the entire thing. On Wednesday, January 11th, the day after the CNN report, Trump, still more than a week away from taking office, called Comey. The president-elect was concerned about the leak. From his perspective, Trump saw a top law enforcement official, Comey, brief him about a salacious and unsupported allegation and then saw it all over the news in the next few days. Trump wanted to know what happened. From the IG report, Comey told the IG that he vividly remembered the conversation during which they discussed a media report that had disclosed the salacious information. Trump's concern was how it was leaked. Comey tried to talk to Trump out of his suspicions. Comey said that, among other things, he remembered telling Trump that the source of the information was not a government document and it's not classified. Comey also remembered telling Trump that to speak of it as a leak doesn't make sense because a lot of people in Washington had the information. And Comey said he told Trump that he had previously warned Trump that it might soon be published by the media. Comey's explanation was disingenuous at best. Leaked information could be terribly damaging whether it was classified or not. And yes, some media figures had the dossier. Steele had been desperately trying to get them to report it for months. But the media did not know that Comey had briefed Trump on the Moscow story.
Right.
That was the leak that gave the media the go-ahead to report on the existence of the dossier.
Right.
Okay? It was the leak of the meeting that set off the chain of events surrounding the dossier and the Trump Tower briefing. One last thing. Although Comey made it a point to memorialize his conversation with Trump, he did not write a memo about the January 11th phone call in which he tried to convince the president-elect that a leak was not to blame for this Steele Moscow story. The new IG report is devastating to Comey. His leak of other materials from his memos, sensitive law enforcement material from an ongoing investigation, violated Justice Department and FBI.
So I'm going to stop altogether. Okay. Like, when I compare myself and my powers of observation to other people, and I always say, you know what, listen, I'm not like FBI. I'm not CIA, whatever. I'm throwing that out the water. Do you know why? Because obviously his powers of observation, how did he even get to be FBI director, by the way?
He's not a law enforcement person.
I'm serious. The idea that Trump is going to buy the fact that other people had the information, that's not what tipped the president off. It was the fact that the meeting was leaked. That's kind of a dumb moment. Like, I think I would have thought that through better. And I'm not FBI director. Maybe I should be. Raise your hand if
Okay,
you think
and
I
so
should
one
be.
more article here on keep your powder dry. Comey is not out of the woods. Okay, so this person, this is written by Larry Johnson, not like the Libertarian candidate. He says, Gary Johnson. Okay. My only previous experience with Bill Barr was the role he played in making sure the two guys who planted the bomb on Pan Am 103 were prosecuted. Barr was a straight shooter and would not cut corners. I'm also friends with the person who worked directly for him during that period. That person insists that Barr is not going to let Comey and Brennan and Clapper off the hook. That person also has reminded me that Barr will do it by the book and do it fairly. With that predicate, I want you to focus on the core of yesterday's Inspector General report. It's very simple and concise. The focus of the OIG's investigation was to determine whether Comey violated department or FBI policies or the terms of his FBI employment agreement in his handling of the memos during his tenure as FBI director. Memos 2 and 7 contain small amounts of information classified as confidential level, and the FBI designation 4, 5, and 6 as unclassified for official use only. Comey was removed as FBI director on May 9th, 2017. Comey still had copies of these memos in his personal safe at home. The Inspector General Act of 1978, the OIG provided a copy of these factual findings to the department for a prosecutorial decision regarding Comey's conduct. After reviewing the matter, the department declined prosecution. As described in this report, we conclude that Comey's retention, handling, and dissemination of certain memos violated these agreements in his employment agreement. But Comey violated Department of Justice and FBI policies and violated his FBI employment agreement. If he had taken classified memos home and stored them, then he would have been indicted. But he did not engage in criminal activity with respect to classified information. He consciously and deliberately took steps not to keep classified information in his house. This is quite different from the conduct.
To not keep.
He consciously to not keep classified information in his house.
Okay.
This is quite different from the conduct of Hillary Clinton, who knowingly and intentionally kept classified information on her unclassified private server. Jim Comey is stupidly taking a victory lap over this report and insisting that he has been vindicated. I once considered Comey to be a smart person. Clearly he is not. He just pretends to be. His behavior today reveals an immaturity and hubris that confirms why he was fired in the first place. This is the second Inspector General report that blasts Comey for unprofessional and unethical conduct. Being unprofessional and unethical is not illegal and does not guarantee a prison term. The Inspector General is building a clear body of evidence that Jim Comey routinely and frequently violated, and I really think that that is where this is headed. I'm hoping to God that it is. If he comes out with this report, this is one body of evidence against Comey that he routinely violated these policies.
Exactly.
And where did they lead and for what purpose? Okay? So this actually is, in my opinion, I have goosebumps, is the basis for what could be the showdown, the ultimate showdown. So when you have this base of evidence, you don't have to resubmit it. It's already submitted.
Exactly.
Okay? The Inspector General is building, I have goosebumps,
she really does.
A clear body of evidence.
They're standing up.
That Jim Comey routinely and frequently violated Department of Justice and FBI policies and procedures. I want you to recall that what the Inspector General said about Jim Comey in his July 2016 press conference on the Hillary Clinton investigation. We determined that Comey's decision to make this statement was a result of his belief that only he had the ability and credibility and authoritatively convey the rationale for the decision to not seek charges against Clinton, and that he needed to hold the press conference to protect the FBI and the department from the extraordinary harm that he believed would have resulted had he failed to do so. While we found no evidence that Comey's statement was a result of bias or an effort to influence the election, we did not find his justifications for issuing the statement to be reasonable or persuasive. We concluded that Comey's unilateral announcement was inconsistent with department policy and violated long-standing department practice and protocol by, among other things, criticizing Clinton's uncharged conduct. We also found that Comey usurped the authority of the Attorney General and inadequately and incompletely described the legal position of the Department of Prosecutions. The same conclusion with respect to Comey's handling of the Wiener laptop. We found no evidence that Comey's decision to send the October 28th letter was influenced by political preferences, blah, blah, blah. Much like with his July 5th announcement, we found that in making this decision, Comey engaged in an ad hoc decision-making based on his personal views, even if it meant rejecting long-standing department policy or practice. We found unpersuasive Comey's explanation as to why transparency was more important than department policy and practice with regard to the activated mid-year investigation, while by contrast, department policy and practice were more important to follow with regard to the Clinton Foundation and Russia investigations. Comey's description of his choice as being between two doors, one labeled speak and one labeled conceal, was a false dichotomy. The two doors were actually labeled follow policy and practice and depart from policy practice. We found it extraordinary that Comey assessed that it was best that the FBI director not speak directly with the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General about how best to navigate this most important decision and mitigate the resulting harms, and that Comey's decision resulted in the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General concluding that it would be counterproductive to speak directly with him. Why in the world does Jim Comey celebrate being known as the FBI director who routinely departed from DOJ and FBI policy and practice? He did not follow the rules. He made up rules to suit his own personal fancy. The fact that Comey thinks that this is a worthy trait tells us everything we need to know about his lack of character and integrity. Another critical Inspector General report on Russiagate is still pending, and Comey faces great danger on this front. This one will cover, we talked about this, the FISA abuse.
Yes.
And so this person says, I think the DOJ did the right thing in not trying to prosecute Comey over the memos he drafted. It is a nuanced process crime and would be tough to present to a jury. Lying about the FISA warrant is completely different and more profound. Barr's Department of Justice should prosecute Comey and others on that issue. If they do not, then the cause of justice in our republic will be dead. It is simple. Justice is not supposed to be blind in terms of not having a preconceived conclusion about guilt or innocence. This also means that your status in wealth should not provide you protection against being held accountable for illegal acts. The jury reigns out with respect to what Attorney General Barr will do. This person says I give him the benefit of the doubt. So,
I'm going to give Bill Barr the benefit of the doubt too, because I've looked into his eyes, obviously via the internet, not in person. And I see somebody that honestly wants to get to the truth. And I don't think that he is.
I do. I think you're right. I do think you're right.
I don't think he's going to be swayed by, people. Nobody has any dirt on him that you know what I mean? It's not like he owes anybody anything. He didn't have to take that job.
Right.
It's like the worst job ever.
And I'm hoping he is a straight shooter. So here's another clip I want to play for you guys. Hang on. Former CIA officer Brian Dean Wright, a Democrat, slams disgraced former FBI Director James Comey after the Department of Justice report. Here we go.
Wait a minute. It hasn't dinged yet.
Ring, ding, ding.
Donna Terry says, watch him pull a rabbit out of a hat. Wrong hat. He'll get got at some point.
Joining us right now is a former CIA officer and Democrat as well, Brian Dean Wright. Brian, good morning to you.
Such a pleasure.
You told our producer yesterday, as a former CIA officer, I am beyond livid. Why?
How can you not be? For two reasons. One, in 2016, we had effectively a coup, did we not? We had an individual that the IG report has now said, an FBI director, leaked information to force a public action, that is the appointment of a special counsel, not because the facts demanded it, but because he in his own partisan drive desired it. Now that's horrifying. Not only was that horrifying for Donald Trump or any president that could have been elected in 2016, the profound concern that I have as an American, forget Democrat, Republican, and especially as an agency officer, we have 35,000 employees in the FBI, tens of thousands of CIA officers who have access to some of the most profound powers and knowledge in this country. Now, what example does that set for them such that in 2020 or 2024, they can choose to use that information however they want to kneecap whoever they want, whenever they want? We are at this precipice, we're at this cliff's edge of something very, very horrific happening that we're not going to be able to pull back from unless we are incredibly careful and we take Comey and Brennan and the rest of these characters to task.
You know, you put it as only somebody who has your background could. So what you're describing is this guy with a lot of power, top lawman in the country, was out for revenge against Donald Trump for political purposes.
Precisely. And in 2020, if we have Elizabeth Warren or whoever on the Democratic side who happens to win, let's just say for argument's sake, you don't think there are going to be conservative or Republican spies who aren't going to be out for revenge themselves? And now what's the consequence for their behavior? There is none. They get a book deal. I mean, that's what Comey got. Right. So there is no jail time. There is no prosecution. There's nothing.
And what about that? The Department of Justice declined to prosecute him in this particular instance.
Precisely.
Why?
I would love to talk to A.G. Barr and understand why, because it makes no sense.
But don't you think that if somebody could figure a way to do it, it would be Bill Barr?
Look, he is a man of total integrity, so I understand that they made a call. I appreciate that. But what I fear for my country, forget parties, for my country, is a precedent where somebody can break the law and kneecap a duly elected president and face absolutely no consequences for it. Well, what are the consequences? He got a book deal. He's doing fantastic for himself. So there are no consequences for my fellow brethren in the intelligence community. My God, what is to prevent that from happening again today? Nothing. So, nothing.
Brian Dean, what do you think the public perception then is of people looking in at these three-letter agencies like the FBI or the CIA?
I think what you're going to hear, what you have heard in the past couple of years, is a call to disband.
Too much power?
Yeah, exactly. And I understand why someone might make that argument after they see people like the Comeys and the Brennans and the McCabe's and the Strokes and all the Page and all the rest of that disaster. It makes sense that people would say, these people have too much power, and even when they're caught, we can't toss them out. So we need to minimize or disband the entire organizations or agency, and that's dangerous for the country.
Brian, you don't sound like any Democrat I've seen on TV in the last 24 hours.
Horrifying, isn't it? This should unite all of us in the sense that we know that there's a threat, and we should be tackling it together, but we're not. And it's because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that fundamentally is what the Democratic Party is engaged in right now. And they are doing a deal with the devil that is going to backfire on them in 2020 and 2024 if, in fact, a Democrat gets elected, because I guarantee you there will be revenge. Conservatives or Republican spies and law enforcement officials will be hell-bent on revenge.
And, of course, Donald Trump, this gives him ammunition. He can say, look, I told you there was trouble at the top of the FBI. Exhibit A, ladies and gentlemen.
Amen.
All right. Brian Dean, right?
I have to disagree with this guy on one point, and that is and this is not because, listen, I'm a libertarian. This is not. Republicans don't play like that by and large. And if they do, they're not actually a Republican.
Here's the thing:
they're like a McCain.
Good at it.
Yeah,
they're totally not good at it. And like you said, if they did, they do it against the good people.
Right.
Like they did it. Like McCain did it against President Trump.
Exactly.
Like Republicans don't believe in that. You can get real Republicans don't believe. And I say this as somebody who's frustrated because Republicans, they never go on the offense. Mm-hmm. Never, ever. When have you seen a Republican go on the offense?
They're kind of wimpy.
They're such wimps. They sit back and they allow, Supreme Court justices to be nominated, and they don't pull a Kavanaugh.
Hang on, though. What's more, though, there really aren't any Republican.
And I think that's what it is.
CIA, FBI agents. I mean, it's and the reason being is because it's not about left versus right. It's just about corruption. The FBI and the CIA, it's all about corruption.
Ran the CIA, and he was asked, "Did you ever vote for a communist?" And he said, "Yes, I voted communist." Like, how do you end up as the top brass CIA?
No. It's very simple. It's so simple.
And you voted communist.
Counterintelligence.
And guess who else did?
All of them are deep. They are all corrupt. They all play the game of wanting singular power, right? They're all part of the globalist agenda.
I know how Comey got into that place. At one time, you had all communists in leadership because James Comey literally laughed and said when he was in college, he was a communist. So how is it that these, you know what I mean? Like they're getting put into power, which leads me to somebody had shared with me on Twitter an interview, and I've only seen part of it, so I'd like to watch the rest of it, but I have to watch it with the subtitles, with an ex-Chinese billionaire. And let me see.
Well, I think the reason being is because when you become an FBI agent or a CIA agent or whatever, you have to owe allegiance to that agency. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you become part of this pyramid. Okay, where you look. And it's all about the agency, and it's all about you become secondary. You owe your whole life to the agency. Okay, it's not like being a regular old government official. Okay, there's something brotherhood-ish. It's like a gang. It's like the mafia. It's like the mob. Right. That's what the FBI and the CIA, that's how they operate. They operate with that mafia mob mentality or that gang mentality. And so in order to be like that, you have to be more socialist, communist minded in order to align with that. Because the rest of us, whether you're Republican or conservative or libertarian, it's all about independence. about self-governing, about sole proprietary, that's why. Be safe out there. I want to end it like Lynette Zeng does on ITM Trading. Remember that shields are made of metal and not paper promises. That's how she always ends her shows. But remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory.
If it's the truth.
We love you. God loves you.
Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Patriot Gallery's been doing a great job breaking things up.
Yes, thank you, Patriot
segments if
Gallery.
you want to share some of these videos that you think are important.
Speaking of Patriot Gallery, she's always got new blogs out on Resistance Chicks blogspot.com. You can find us on Isaiah58ministries.blogspot.com, resistancechicks.com. You can go there to find the latest of what we've been doing here. So, all right, you guys, we love you, and we'll see you Sunday.
You. God bless.
I was cold, all alone. No place to